English shorthand dictation exercise number 215. Dictation speed 140 words per minute. Ready? Start. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I am very glad that my honorable friend should have thought of such a cut motion as the one he has moved, because the cut motion gives the government the opportunity to explain its mineral policy, which it had not got so far. There is so much ignorance and so much misunderstanding about the matter that I think it is in the interest of everybody that so important a matter as the mineral policy of the Government of India should be explained fully to the House. Sir, I have no doubt that there are other members of the House who will share the feeling that owing to the exigencies of the timetable, the mover of the cut motion did not have the opportunity of making a verbal statement explaining the points he wanted to make. I am very grateful to him for having cut short his speech and having given his time to enable me to make a statement. Sir, this is a matter in which I think it is better to be very candid and say that the Government of India so far had really no mineral policy. It may be a ground for complaint, but it need not be a ground for surprise. The responsibility for the absence of a mineral policy has been sought to be placed in certain quarters at the door of the Geological Survey of India. I am sure that that is a wrong charge, and I propose to devote the first few minutes that I have in order to dispel such an impression. I think it will be admitted that the mineral policy of any government is necessarily dependent upon the industrial policy of any government. Minerals necessarily play a great part in the industrial development of the country. If the country has no industrial policy, obviously there cannot be a mineral policy at all. This House is aware that until the Government of India decided to have as its aim and object the reconstruction of the economic and industrial life of this country in the post-war period, the government played very small part in the industrialization of the country. All that I am trying to show is that if there has been no mineral policy, the fault is not of the Geological Survey of India. The fault lay with the government of the day. The fault perhaps lay with the legislature and with other organizations which were interested in the economic and industrial life of the country. The second reason why the Geological Survey did not play the part that geological surveys in other parts of the world do play is largely due to the fact that this is one of the departments which has always been understaffed. I would like to tell the House a little history with regard to the staffing and the provision of the technical personnel of the Geological Survey of India. In 1920, sanction was obtained for an increase in the superior gazetted staff of the Geological Survey. Unfortunately, there was so much difficulty in getting trained personnel that it took practically 9 years to fill the requisite number. The pity of the matter was that as soon as this number was filled, the legislature carried a motion for economy, and almost all these men who were recruited had to be axed. I point that out in order to show that if the Geological Survey Department did not play its part in the mineral policy of the Government of India, the legislature to some extent is responsible for that result. In the limited time that I have, I do not wish to dwell more on the past. I wish to speak about the future. I am glad to say that the Government of India has now accepted the need for a definite mineral policy. That is largely due to the fact that the Government of India has taken a decision to have a driver in favor of bringing about the industrialization of the country. The mineral policy of the Government of India has been set out in Section 14 of the second report on reconstruction and planning. I have no time to read section 14 or even to give the gist of that paragraph. I have no doubt that the members of the legislature who are interested in the matter will look up section 14 and see for themselves what exactly that policy is. To summarize the matter briefly, the mineral policy of the Government of India and the action which the Government of India proposes to take in furtherance of that policy falls into two parts. In the first place, we propose to reconstitute the Geological Survey of India in order to make it a more potent instrument for the furtherance of our policy. Accordingly, a detailed scheme of expansion of the survey has been drawn up and administratively approved. The new branches of the Geological Survey which we propose to set up will deal with engineering geology, industrial utilization of minerals, central mineral development, and oil development. It will include the establishment of a natural history museum and a publicity section in order to keep the public informed of what is being done. The second part of our mineral policy consists of legislation which the Government of India proposes to initiate for the purpose of establishing control over minerals. In defining the limits of legislative control over the minerals, we propose to take into consideration the following circumstances. 1. The importance of the mineral from the defense point of view on all India mineral development. 2. The technical nature of the mineral. 3. The purposes for which the mineral is used. 4. The value of the mineral or of the products into the making of which the mineral enters. Our legislative provisions will fall into two classes, or rather divide the minerals into two categories. In the first category will be minerals which will be subjected to general control, and under general control we propose to confine ourselves to the granting of prospecting and mining leases, renewal of such licenses and termination thereof. In the second category will be other minerals which will be selected for more detailed control. The number of such minerals which are suggested for more detailed control is 28. I do not propose to detail them here. The detailed control will include the power to grant licenses, the power to control the method of mining, processing, grading, and standardizing, the power to direct improvement of mining and procuring methods, and also the power to initiate research for increased utilization and for other necessary purposes. I have stated as briefly as I can the general policy which the Government of India proposes to adopt in regard to minerals. I propose now to turn to some of the specific points of which my honorable friend had given notice to me. The first point to which he has referred was the export of minerals. I would like to assure the House that in the contemplated legislation there will be provisions for dealing with the export of minerals outside India. The question really is whether we can completely stop the export of our minerals. The answer to that question must necessarily depend upon another question, whether we shall be able to import those minerals in which India is deficient if we completely stop the export of our own minerals. As honorable members are aware, India is in fact deficient in such important minerals as oil, copper, lead, zinc, tin, and sulfur. Consequently, the question of export has to be considered in the light of the effect it may produce on our ability to import things in which we are deficient. The course which appears safest to the Government of India is to regulate the export of those minerals which are in short supply and which are necessary for the industrial development of the country, and secondly, to see that we establish in our own country such industries as will enable us to process the raw material before it is exported to other countries. Another point to which my honorable friend has drawn my attention is with regard to the oil concessions. As the honorable members of the House know, there exists at present a moratorium on the granting of mining and prospecting licenses. That moratorium was introduced mainly because the Government of India did not desire that various oil companies should dissipate or engage for their own prospecting purpose technical personnel which is so deficient in its supply in this country. That moratorium will last till the war and sometime thereafter.